Good evening, everyone. Glad to see a lot of people here tonight for our interview with Dr. Ash. Before we get to that, our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would stand, we'll be led tonight by Board Member Elisa Moore.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, good to see everyone here tonight. Dr. Ash, welcome, sir. We're glad to have you with us, and certainly glad that you chose to apply for our director's position. I want to remind you just a couple of things real quick. I know you have received these questions, as every candidate did, well in advance of the interview. Our time frame is approximately an hour, and so that means clear answers and brief answers. Okay, you're used to saying this to others, and I'm saying it to you. We do have, of course, a number of questions that we have 14 actually. Each board member gets 2, and we'll go through those. And obviously we want clear, concise answers, and brevity is probably called for. Other than that, if you don't have any questions for us, I think we're ready to go. And as you know from your list, Mr. Wayne Blair, board member, former chairman, is first up. So, Mr. Blair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Dr. Ash.
Good evening.
First question of our session: how does your philosophy of education align with our district?
Well, I think my philosophy should align very well with Rutherford County. I have spent the vast majority of my educational career in Rutherford County. I have grown and developed as an educator, much as Rutherford County has grown over the last 20 plus years. I have seen much growth, but I still try to hold to my fundamental beliefs. My philosophies will always be student-centered. I think the secret to education is planned for each child's education in each classroom, in each school. I think sometimes as we grow, we get overwhelmed a little bit by the 44,000 plus students that we have to educate. And I think it's important that we focus on each individual child. If we do a good job of meeting the needs of each child, we will meet the needs of the 44,000. Each child deserves the opportunity to grow every day and reach their full potential. The world's a rapidly changing place. Many of our students will earn a living in jobs that aren't even invented yet. And so we need to give them the skills to meet this ever-changing place. We need to teach them to think critically. We've got to encourage our children to love learning so that they will be lifelong learners. The children must learn to adapt to the many situations that are going to face them. Simply regurgitating information is no longer acceptable. We need to be able to have our students analyze and evaluate information. They should be able to apply what they know and the skills that we've given them to many different situations. As we increase the rigor and expectations, though, of these children, we've got to also make sure that we're providing the support that's needed. We need policies and procedures that identify at early ages anytime they're lagging behind their classmates, and I think we need to make sure we have services in place to help them catch up. We've had great success with RTI programs. I think early intervention is the key to preventing these kids from getting behind. But I'd like to see something in place where we take what we've learned from RTI and apply it more to the general education. I think we're finding a lot of things that are working that we need to be using in multiple situations. It's imperative that all our students be challenged, and we need to make sure they're getting the most they possibly can out of Rutherford County.
Thank you, Dr. Ash. Second question: what do you consider to be the major strengths that you would bring to this position?
I think my varied background is my greatest strength. I've done a little bit of everything. I've done almost everything there is to do at the school level in education. I taught standard physical science and ecology at Laverne High School. I taught advanced placement chemistry and honors physics at Brentwood. I've also served as an assistant principal at Varn High School, served as principal at Christiana Middle, and principal now at Central. I was actually a network supervisor at one period at Brentwood, one of the first ones in the state. So I've also had the pleasure to be a head football coach, mostly a pleasure. I've been a head baseball coach, a track coach, assistant basketball coach, a middle school basketball coach. I've done a little bit of everything. And I think this helps me understand all aspects of education. I feel like I have a great understanding of the teaching at both ends of the spectrum. This varied background has also allowed me to maintain great relationships with my teachers. The SRO division, maintenance, the central office staff, and other stakeholders in education. I'm sure as you looked at my personnel file, you noticed that I've never had a formal complaint. I've never had a grievance filed against me. I think this shows that I'm good with people. I can work with any group. Another of my assets, I think, is the ability to hire good people. In his book, Good to Great, Collins says one of the most important things in an organization is getting the right people on the bus. And I think that's one of my greatest strengths. I believe an organization and a leader is only as good as the people that work for them. That's why I feel like the group of teachers we had at Christiana Middle School and now at Central, they don't have an equal anywhere. I think that was evidenced by Christiana. We were consistently in the top 10 in the state in value added. And then, of course, at Central, we were ranked #1 school in the state. Another quality I think I've developed is able to work with a vision. As the first principal at 2 schools, part of my job was to do almost everything, develop almost all procedures, and policies. And at both schools, we developed a great culture. We developed a culture that was student-centered. We always put the student first. We never allowed our focus to vary from that student. And I think that's why we've been successful at both schools. I feel like I've been preparing for this position my entire career. At every level, I've tried to find something to make me better. I've attended countless workshops, countless trainings, from NASSP to ASCD to all the other alphabet organizations I belong to. I've received 4 degrees, 3 in administration and supervision from multiple universities, and I completed the Tennessee School Board Association Academy and received a recommendation from them. I love my current job, but I feel it's time to move on, and so I feel like it's time to help on a larger scale.
Thank you.
Mr. Young?
Dr. Ash, as Director of Rutherford County Schools, how would you deal with the amount of growth and the shortfall of quality teachers filling open positions?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I think nothing in education is more important than the teachers. It doesn't matter how much we spend on technology or what the next great program we try to implement. If we don't have great teachers, we are going to fail. Great teachers, there's just no substitute for them. A great teacher is a great teacher on a block schedule. Then they turn around, they're a great teacher on a traditional schedule. If we tell a great teacher that we're about to do a new evaluation process or we're about to add a new reading program, they shrug their shoulders and continue being great teachers. So, I mean, it is vital to our success that we do recruit these great teachers. But teachers want and deserve respect. We've got to strive to show the teachers just how important they are and that we do value them. We also need to spend time investigating why some teachers don't apply for Rutherford County. We need to work with the universities to find out why some don't choose to even consider us. We should also do exit interviews on every teacher that leaves the county on their own and find out what was the reason they left. Maybe there's something we could have done about it. We've got to develop a way to attract these people. We're blessed to have a great university in our backyard in MTSU. We need to continue the relationship with them, but expand this relationship to other universities as well. I was talking to Dr. Stevers the other day after the job fair, and we had some good candidates at the job fair from all over the country. But we were discussing the quality of the applicants as well as, honestly, how much MTSU has improved on preparing teachers. But we need to develop this relationship with other universities as well. We need a close relationship. As top-notch applicants get fewer and fewer, we've got to make sure Rutherford County is their first choice. We must also train the teachers we do have. We need to base our trainings on accepted pedagogy. We need to make sure about being careful about getting too caught up in the latest, greatest thing. Sometimes the fundamentals work better. We should make sure we have strong mentoring on our teachers for at least the first 3 years. Our mentoring programs need to be tailored individually for teachers, like anything else. We must make sure that our teachers have a complete toolbox so that they have the right teaching strategy in the right situation. A well-trained teacher is a confident and happy teacher, and confident, happy teachers decide to stay in Rutherford County. Finally, we as members of the profession need to encourage people to go into teaching. We need to be encouraging things like Future Teachers of America and help every opportunity we can with giving children opportunity to teach, whether it be tutoring, working with elementary schools when they're in high school, but to try to get them to have that teaching bug bite them earlier. All most young people hear about teaching is bad. We can't allow it to come from us. I feel so lucky. I've never felt like I worked a day in my life. Each day I'm privileged to go to school, and most people can't say that. When people hear what I do for a living, many times they'll look at me and go, I can't imagine doing that. I can't imagine doing anything else. I can't imagine doing anything but help develop the next generation. I just think now I'm ready to do it on a larger scale.
Thank you, Dr. Ash. What areas would you focus on to take Rutherford County to the next level, and how would you improve these areas?
Well, one of the main areas I'd like to see us focus on and continue focusing on, we already are, is school safety. Nothing is more important than keeping our children safe. We've been blessed. We have one of the first SRO divisions in the country, and I think we have probably the best. We've tried to be progressive in keeping our safety plans updated, our drills, and our procedures, but we need to continue this as a priority. We also need to look for ways to ensure the mental health of our students. Preparing for emergencies and doing our drills and that sort of things obviously have the utmost importance, but it's much more important to stop these emergencies from happening before they happen. And I think as financial resources get smaller and smaller, we can't let that affect school safety. I mean, we're going to have to make some hard decisions, and school safety can't be substituted on. I'd also like to see better continuity between schools and their feeder schools. We need to provide a sense of ownership for each child's learning. Every person along the way should take pride in every child's learning, K-12 or pre-K-12. We need to arrange times for vertical teaming. The groups between schools need to meet with each other. They need to be trained in what each level is teaching. You know, an 8th grade teacher needs to know what a 9th grade teacher is going to teach and what that 9th grade teacher needs that child to have when they get there. We need to increase our collegial conversations. We need all teachers to understand that each one of us is required to educate a child. One of the major areas I'd like to see also improved is preparation for the ACT. It's not only a high school issue, but it is an issue throughout the entire system. We need a consistent plan that starts at the earliest grades and develops throughout school. Our state has a target of 21 for the ACT. Rutherford County should be much higher than that. Our schools are too good to be average, so we need to shoot for much higher than that. We've worked very hard on the ACT at Central. We've improved it every year we've been open. We're now pretty well over 30. Now I realize everybody can't do that. We have a unique group of young people, but everybody can improve. The first thing we did was we educated our faculty on the ACT. We let them compare the new standards and the ACT standards. They found there were a lot in common. We do bell ringers on the ACT. Our middle school works on the ACT greatly, and we've seen really good results from that. But we also talk about educating the whole child. In this day and time, I think it's even more important than when I was in school. Many of the so-called soft skills that businesses are clamoring for, integrity, teamwork, hard work, we need to be teaching these kids. I think a quality advisory program can accomplish a great deal of this. One of the cornerstones of our success at Central is our advisory program. In there, we cover things that honestly just don't have time in the curriculum anymore. The curriculum is so crammed full, and teachers are doing everything they possibly can. It's hard to throw in some of these other skills. So I think with an advisory, the best thing about an advisory is you can do it with almost no money. We could be, with almost no investment, receiving great returns from our students. And finally, I think with anything, whether it's building a house or educating a child, we've got to have a great foundation. Early childhood literacy, we need a very good program. We need every child when they get to third grade to be able to read well. If they don't have that skill, chemistry is going to be really difficult in high school. So is everything else. So, I mean, if you don't have that basis, if you don't have that foundation, everything else is going to fall by the wayside as they get older. And we can't expect a high school to take a child that's reading on a second grade level and through an hour a day of RTI catch them up. It's impossible. So, I mean, we need to attack that at a much earlier grade structure. We need to ensure that each child's taught with this quality literacy. I think the state's new Read to Be Ready initiative is a good one, but the key to initiatives is that you train well when you introduce them, and you follow up on them, and you follow up with training. Because when you first have something introduced, the teacher doesn't even have good questions. They don't know what the problems are going to be. So they need to come back at a later date and receive more training that after they've tried to implement it a little bit. So all of these things I'd like to see, and many more, but I'm being brief.
Thank you, Dr. Ash.
Mr. Hodge.
Good evening, Dr. Ash, once again. Our funding for our school board budget comes from the county commission. How would you go about getting support from the commission to fund not only our budget, but also our building program?
I think the way to develop good relationships with any group of people is open and honest communication. I think our commission appreciates the needs of the school system. Most of them have children or grandchildren in the schools. They want the very best for us. We have to appreciate the political constraints they work under as well. So I think, being open and honest with them is a good start. We need to ensure that we're good stewards of the money we are getting. We need to spend the money we do get well. It's our job to educate the public and the commission, not only on the what we need, but the why. The first answer to every question is not more money. Sometimes after you try multiple solutions, sometimes it is the final answer. And, we need to have the commission's faith in us that we are problem solvers and that we are trying multiple ways of doing things before we come and ask for that $80 million building, or as it'll quickly be $100 million building. We need to make sure we're doing everything we can with what we have, and then we also need to we have to make our needs, our students' needs, clear to the commission. I mean, we are growing. It's going to cost more every year to educate these children simply by the math of a 3 or 4% growth. 3% doesn't sound like much until you realize it's 3% of 44,000 people. That's a huge number. That's a school a year, as I'm sure y'all are completely aware. That's a school a year. Every year, we're getting behind that we don't open a school. And we're probably, 4 or 5 already behind. But we need to, ensure that we're open about that. We need to make sure we have exhausted every plan we can. It's also important to our system that we continue to show the efficient and productive investment they're making in us. We get a big bang for the buck. We need to celebrate our successes. We need to demonstrate not only to the commission but the taxpayers the incredible return they're already getting on their investment. And completely honestly, if we don't continue to have a great school system, this growth is going to stop. People aren't going to move to a county that does not have a great school system. Businesses have choices, and they choose to move where their employees are happy and where they can get quality employees. And we're the cornerstone of that. So we need to make sure that we let everyone know that. Thank you.
how have you been successful in getting strong parental and community support for a school, programs, or district? Tell us about one such success.
I think probably opening Christiana Middle. When we opened Christiana Middle, we took students from Barfield and Christiana, and we took two completely different schools and combined them. They were very diverse in how they did things. We received about 2/3 of our students from Barfield and 1/3 from Christiana, so it would have been easy to let the Christiana kids be overshadowed somewhat. And the school was built right next to Christiana Elementary. So we had students from Barfield that maybe never ever been out the few miles to Christiana. So we had to make them all feel welcome. We not only had to combine the students, though, we had to combine the parents. Everything from attendance to anything that goes on in the school was done differently. We had to combine two groups of teachers. So we worked very hard to make sure the students and parents felt welcome. We made sure that we included them on decision making. Our students actually voted on the mascot from both schools. The first year, our student officers, we made sure we had Christiana Elementary students because they would not have been elected. The kids at Barfield didn't know them, and they had the votes. There was 2/3 of them. So we made sure everyone was represented on our student government. But the biggest thing is we developed a great PTO. We had an incredible parent base out there. They were excited about the new school. We worked very closely with them. We raised money. We had some really good fundraisers that allowed us to do some things, buy some technology and different things. We tried to keep that open relationship with them after fundraisers. We would post pictures of what we bought on the website and tried to keep all that involved. We invited parents to everything we could. And I think we turned out some of the best students anywhere in the county. We couldn't have been as successful as we were at Christiana without the parental support.
Mr. Estes?
Okay, Dr. Ash. What ways do you think career technical education supports ESSA standards in the core subjects?
First of all, I think there's a myth in society today that there's not enough jobs for the young people. I think sometimes we don't prepare the young people well enough for the jobs. And so with career and technical, it's a strategy for providing young people with these academic, technical, and employability skills that they can use either in post-secondary school or in training. More and more jobs now require more training once you get there. And I think our kids have to have those skills to be successful in those trainings. Students also meet your expectations. I worry a lot of times in CTE classes, we don't have the same high expectations we have in some other classes. We've got to make sure every child has high expectations. We also have to make sure that we continue researching our CTE programs, that we're meeting the needs of the business leaders, and that our programs are keeping up with the 21st century demands. I think CTE is an integral part of our school system. We need to be conscientious in ensuring that we continue to get our CTE funding. There very well may be some changes in the federal funding on that in the near future. We need to make sure we're involved, express our opinions on that. But we also need to make sure our students have those critical thinking skills and the other skills that will let them succeed in this diverse world. We need to recognize this diversity and adapt our students, or teach them to adapt. But we need to make sure that our educational system is ready for all the changes that are coming.
Okay. Tell us 3 curricular or instructional improvements that occurred as a result of your leadership, and what evidence do you have that they were improvements?
Okay. At Laverne High School, part of my responsibilities as assistant principal was over the curriculum. And probably one of the toughest things I had to do at Laverne was, once again, going back to CTE, we evaluated our CTE program and had to decide if what we were offering was what we needed to be offering. And of course, this affected people's lives, so we took it very seriously. I worked closely with Ms. Nixon, Kay Nixon, who was our CTE director at the time. We talked to students, parents. We talked to a great deal of business leaders. and of course there's a lot of research. Wasn't as accessible then as it is now, but we looked at a lot of research on what Rutherford County businesses were looking for, and we ended up doing away with a couple of programs. And once again, that was traumatic for some people, but we needed to do it. They weren't having the numbers they should have, and we weren't able to keep the programs updated. And we added some different ones. One of them was computer repair, I remember. And it was one of the first ones in the area. We were able to give students industry certifications, which we always haven't done in CTE, but we started that there. And a lot of students have benefited from the programs that we started and the certifications that they have received. Secondly, when we opened Christian Middle, one of the things we pioneered in the area was creative scheduling. I was able to develop a schedule that allowed PLCs during the school day. When we first started PLCs in Rutherford County, they were done after school. And as you can imagine, probably weren't supported as well as they should be when you ask someone to stay all night after being there all day. So by doing it during the school day, we got a lot greater buy-in into PLCs. And we also expanded our thinking on this period, and we were able to do remediation. We were one of the first schools in the county that had a dedicated time in the schedule for remediation. And we even went further than that, and we started an enrichment program. Our teachers picked areas that they were interested in. And I mean, it was a wide range of things, from Spanish to knitting. And our students signed up for these enrichment activities if they met certain criteria. And so it allowed us to serve all of our population with this extra period. And it gave them a little study time as well. But that was a very big benefit. And when we started it, when we changed what we were doing to this, we noticed our test scores going up. So I feel like that was a great success. And finally, one of the things I did at my new school, one of the first things I did was make an appointment with Dr. McPhee. I knew we would need MTSU support to help Central kids reach their full potential. We met. One of the first things we discussed was dual enrollment. The day I met with Dr. McPhee, there were 3 students in Rutherford County schools doing dual enrollment with MTSU. That was his numbers. One of them was my son. And I knew through personal experience, it had been very difficult to set up his schedule, to work with the high school and the college to try to get something to work. So Dr. McPhee and I decided we needed a little bit more cooperation. And honestly, I'd been having trouble getting some people to call me. On my way out of his office, walking to my car, I got a call on cell phone from one of the department leaders at MTSU. He bought in greatly to us working together, and he's been a very good supporter of Central. And so now, through working with him and cooperation, we've streamlined the process. And I think dual enrollments with MTSU and other colleges is big at every school in the county now. We feel very good about that. But at Central, we wanted to go beyond simply dual enrollment. We offer 29 advanced placement courses. We'll be offering 30 as soon as we can get a few more kids to sign up for one of them. We've improved at Central in these AP courses to the point, last year we gave 1,309 AP tests. And that was given to 800 students. So that average is a little more than 1.5 per child in 1 year. We had 88% of these students get college credit. The national average is 58%. So, I mean, it's hard to explain how incredible that is. Our teachers do such a good job with that. A lot of times people look at us and think, well, they should do well. They have smart kids. And we do have smart kids. We're very proud of that. But AP is a direct correlation. The AP students I taught at Brentwood would have gotten in Central. You know, the AP students at any school are the highest achieving kids in that school. And our teachers got 88% of them to get college credit. That's amazing. On a personal level, my daughter was able to graduate college in 2.5 years. That allowed her a lot of opportunities. She's now working on her master's at MTSU, and I'm proud to say she wants to be a guidance counselor. So I am thrilled that we're putting another generation in schools. But we do strive at Central for continuous improvement. We're never happy. At least I'm never happy. My teachers will back me up on that. Certainly not satisfied, I'll put it that way. I guess at times I might be happy. I just don't let them say it. But at Central right now, we're trying to add the STEM accreditation from Advanced Ed. And we're also trying to get an accreditation from Magnet Schools of America. The more accreditations we have, the more we think it helps our students when they apply for colleges. So we never, we want our school to be a lifelong learner just like we want our students to be.
Mr. Holliday?
Dr. Ash, cite an instance in a current or former position that demonstrates your ability to work effectively with a diverse group.
Okay, great question. I was born in a small town near here. Yeah, I had a wonderful childhood, but it was sheltered a little bit. I don't know, it was a great situation because none of us knew we were poor because we all were. But when I started teaching at Brentwood, it was a little bit of a culture shock. I learned a lot of new things, learned a lot of new places that some people get to go on vacation. But it was different from Carthage. From Brentwood, I left Brentwood and moved to a new environment at Laverne. And now when I look back on my career, I think maybe the happiest I ever was teaching at Laverne High School. I became an assistant principal there, and I felt like I could make a difference. I felt like I made the students at Laverne's lives better, made the school better, I hope. But at this point, I had a great deal of experience. I'd been a high school coach, a high school assistant principal, a high school teacher. I'd taught multiple things. So naturally, I became a middle school principal. It's the way we do it in education. So if I hadn't had a very good mentor, I don't know that I would have made it. I made a lot of phone calls and asked, what you do in this situation? But I quickly found, middle school, I found out why people say you fall in love with it. Middle school is a special place. You get the privilege of seeing kids go from children to young adults. They grow up so much between 6th and 8th grade. And I think, anybody who's ever taught middle school realizes why it's special. Then Central was discussed. And thankfully, I knew it was the place for me, and thankfully Mr. Gill agreed. He moved me there. So I guess my whole life has been dealing with diversity. I've been in many different situations with different groups of people, and I feel like I've been successful everywhere I've been. I'm extremely adaptable, but I always focus on children. That never changes. And I think you'll find that children, no matter what their background, all they want is somebody to care about them. And they're not going to be successful until you care about them. And I think they need to know, and they will know quickly. You can't lie to children. They will know that you have their best interest at heart and that you respect them. Kids just want to be respected, and that's true in 6th grade and 12th grade. I mean, that's never taught K through 5, but I would assume it's true there too. But, it's very important. But I think my whole life has been moving from one type of situation to another. So my whole life's been about diversity.
Tying right in there, discuss your level of expertise in elementary curriculum and instruction and describe where you gained the expertise, and then do the same for secondary.
Okay. I'd like to start with secondary. I've had a varied background. I have taught many classes. I have taught at different high schools, and I've worked as the assistant principal in charge of curriculum at Laverne. I've started 2 schools and helped develop the curriculum there. I've worked with teachers to improve. I think I get to make a lot of decisions at Central on what we offer and what the schedule is and what our curriculum will be, and help support that curriculum for all the teachers. I think I have a pretty good understanding of high school curriculum because I've been involved with it so much. My experience at elementary is a little more limited. I was principal at Christiana Middle School for 6 years. And during that time, I became very familiar with the upper end of elementary. The 6 through 8. I certainly work with teachers there in every subject area. I started some new programs, some things there. K-5 is probably my weakest area. I've never taught K-5. I did, though, teach a class for EDS level students at MTSU on elementary curriculum. And when I was researching and developing the curriculum for that class, I learned a lot. I hope I did. I hope I didn't take those people's money. But, you know, I do think I have experience at every level. And I think one of the most important things, though, for me as a leader is knowing where I'm strong and where I'm weak. If I'm lucky enough to get the job, I will need to make sure the people at the central office have strengths in areas where I have a weakness. So I will need, you know, obviously a very good K-5 person.
Ms. Moore?
Thank you. Tell us about the most important decision that you've made recently, and explain to us how you involve the people who are actually affected by it.
Well, I really thought long and hard about this question. From being a principal for 15 years, I have made a number of decisions each and every day. Recently, when Tennessee failed to give the 10 ready, it impacted us pretty greatly at Central. We have over 1,000 applications a year, and we use 10 ready scores and GPA to differentiate the applications. Well, obviously, when Tennessee didn't give the test, that interrupted our process a little bit. So what we did was I worked closely with our leadership team at Central. We got feedback from parents and students of different ideas. And we worked very closely with a couple of the central office personnel. And we came up with a solution, and we were able to get that work. We were able to get the funding for it and different things and get it to work. We have now went through 2 years of applications utilizing a different test as well as the 110 ready we were able to get. Hopefully everything goes well. We'll get the test given this year and never have to do that again. It's a lot of work on my staff, and so, but it was the best solution at the time, and we did get as much feedback on it as we can. Another answer to that question might be the hiring process. The most important thing we do at a school is hire teachers and determine which ones stay and which ones are non-renewed. And we try to get as much information on everything we can there. We look at social media. We let our department chairmen sit in on some of the interviews. We let teachers in the department meet them when we can. We also spend the year getting feedback on how things are going at Central. I talk to students every day and just ask, you know, well, how's so-and-so going? You know, or what's your favorite class? What's your least favorite class? I certainly get feedback from parents at Central. They give me a lot of feedback on our teachers. Some of it's really good. But this allows me to make educated, quality decisions on non-renewing, which is probably the hardest thing I do as a principal. But we try to get as much information about every decision we make as we possibly can.
Thank you. Dr. Ash, tell us about any recent action on your part that you believe illustrates your ability to be a champion for your schools.
Well, I spent my life championing Central. When we opened it, I had to convince students and parents to buy into something that they knew nothing about. Central wasn't universally supported. We had an unknown, and we were trying to attract students that had been very successful in traditional schools and get them to try something unknown and untried. We did that. I did this at the time because I guess I was the only employee. But I spoke to anybody that would listen. I met with some of my daughter's friends' parents in their homes and talked up Central. I went on WGNS radio, and I really appreciate them letting me go on there. I went to the different schools. I went to Matt Fadden, Thurman Francis, Laverne Middle. We had a meeting there that was well attended. Siegel Middle, and several other schools. And we tried to get out as much information as we could. I spoke to the Rotary Club about what we were planning and, you know, our ideas. But now I still speak to Rotaries and different things, but the best way I found to champion our school is our students. Nothing sells education better than the quality students we have. I think we need to remember that. We've developed a culture at Central where we talk about the Central family, but our students really do feel a love for the school, and they feel like it's a family feeling. And whether it's our award-winning band or our robotics team, it's one of the best in the country, or DECA, HOSA, Beta, or any of the other numerous clubs that have competed on, at the state level and the national level, every time our students go out, they represent Central, and we build that in them. They champion our school simply by being themselves. When we send kids out to Harvard, Yale, Juilliard, Duke, or any other numerous schools we put kids in, we make sure they realize they're not only there for them, they're building a pathway for future Central students. The more kids we get in these schools, the more they already know Central. And if you know Central, you have to like Central. So we champion our school every moment, every day.
Dr. Ash, how would you utilize the expertise of your staff to create an atmosphere in the schools that will lead to educational excellence?
As I said earlier, I think one of my greatest strengths is hiring people. I feel like I have a knack for being able to pick the quality person out of a choice. And I think what we have to do is get those, get quality people at Central office, develop a sense of trust between the schools and the Central office. Our professional development needs to be data-driven. It needs to be tailored for individual schools and even individual groups of teachers. I feel like that as a principal, I'm a support person for teachers. My job is to support the teachers. When I become director of schools, I don't see that changing. My job will still be a support person. I'm there to help the teachers do the most important thing anybody in Rutherford County Schools does, and that's teach. And so through this, I feel like if I can get everyone at the Central office to have that attitude, that their job is to support the teachers, that when they go into school, they work for the principal when they're in that school. We can build that support between the schools and the Central office. And we should fill the Central office with experts on every area of education. We've got to make sure they have the expertise to share it with the teachers. We got to plan with the end in mind and develop a system where they give the teachers these skills that are needed to be a success.
How can you help us increase public involvement in and support of all our schools?
I think openness, and celebrating successes is a good start. Working closely with the press, continuing to develop new ways of reaching our constituents. Social media is now being utilized better and better. We've got to continue to look at our policies there and try to increase the uses. Sometimes, though, school people complain about the lack of support. I hear that a lot. Well, only parents. Well, then you look and their web pages aren't updated, or they don't return emails in a timely manner. Well, if we're going to want parents to support us, we're going to have to work hard for that support, and we're going to have to prepare for that support. If you want people to be involved in schools, we've got to value their time. I used to do a lot of SACS visits, and when I visited a school in Davidson County one time, and every group I met with, the common answer, how could you improve? They would always say, well, we need more parental involvement. If we only had parental involvement. Finally, I asked them, I said, well, what would that look like? What would you do with it? And not one of them had an answer. You've got to have a plan for the involvement. Not only do you need to invite them, you need to know what it's going to look like when they're involved. You also have to make sure that we aren't wasting their time. They're involvement needs to be valued. It needs to be of something that we actually need. We don't need people in the schools just so we can say, oh, look, we have parental involvement. That's disrespectful to the people giving of their time. You have to plan for all of that. But I guess the best way to get buy-in in schools and parental involvement and everything else is to be great. We've got to have a drive to be great. You can't be satisfied ever with where you are. You got to work each day to make sure each child meets their full potential. Telling the world how great we are is not worth anything if you aren't really great. But I think whether it's a sports program, a business, or a school, when you're a winner, people have buy-in. They support you. We've got to make sure that our school system's second to none. I mean, we've got to make sure we're great, and we got to drive for it every day. You know, once again, the book, Good to Great, the enemy of great's good. And so we've got to ensure that nobody is happy with where we are. We can be better. Once again, we need to reach an average of 21 on the ACT. And then we need to reach a 21.5. And then we need to keep moving. As long as every child I have at Central does not get to go to the school they want to go to for free, I'm not happy. I failed. So now we succeed. Luckily, we succeed at Central on many more students than we fail on. But I'm not happy with one. And we've got to get that feeling across at every school. You know, you have to work until every child is a success. Every child reaches, and that's a different level for different children. Every child's got to reach their full potential. We've got to prepare every child to be successful. It's our future. You know, I want the kids we turn out at Central to stay in Rutherford County because they're great kids. And I want them to contribute to our future success. If they don't, they don't. But I hope they do because I hate to lose them. But we've got to make sure everybody in our school system is pushing to be better every single day. I mean, once again, that's how you're successful in sports. That's how you're successful in band. That's how you're successful in school. Anyway, thank y'all for the interview.
Dr. Ash, I speak for the board and thank you for your answers and your dedication to Tigerville. If you just bear with us for just a moment, just a couple of house cleaning things here for the board, but also for the audience. We meet again on the 19th for our third and final interview. That will be at 6 o'clock again. And then on the Tuesday, the 20th, we have a board work session. And on the 22nd, we have a board meeting, and Ms. Michaels has returned or has given me the agenda. I haven't looked over all of it. I just had it for a few minutes, but some special stuff that night. We get to honor four really champions, one of which, Dr. Ash, you're very familiar with, Christiana Middle Girls basketball team, who won the county again, the Rock Springs, actually the sectional, the Rock Springs Middle School boys, also the Blackman cheerleading squad, which were, well, I don't guess they could go any further than national champions, so that's where they stopped. And the Riverdale girls basketball team as state champions will be with us on that night. So we'll back up one night now and go to the 21st. I spent part of the day, and that would be, what is that, a Wednesday? Yes, that's a Wednesday. Talking with our attorneys and what we're going to do on that night and so forth, and just exactly what kind of decisions that I need to make, and to be perfectly and completely legal, make certain that that was true. So I'm getting around to telling you that we're going to vote that night on our new director of schools. I have one vote or 50 or whatever it takes. And also wanted to tell you that we were already going to meet that night anyway, but for an interview, but we do not have an interview that night, and that will be at 6 o'clock on the 21st, 6 o'clock. Okay, I think that covers everything. I also have got to select evidently there are many options of a way to take the vote that evening, and I'm not hiding anything from you, and I never do. I really haven't decided yet. I'm going to have to talk to Mr. Reed some more about this, and we'll do so, and we'll make a decision before we get to that night, so everybody knows. Board, anything other than thanking Dr. Ash? I'll thank you for the board, but they may want to talk to you after. Appreciate the audience. They were so attentive. This is the most attentive I've seen Judge Ash in years. He usually nods off during these things, but I wasn't even supposed to say that. I just kidding. I appreciate all of you being here. The board does as well, and enjoy the rest of your week. We are adjourned.